Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Raquela, and like I said, I can't see any of you because I'm virtual, but it's an honor to be here with you all today and to present at this event. I understand it's the 4th annual event of this kind, which is amazing. And before we jump into this angle, I know today you guys have been hearing a lot about climate change and global warming and environmentalism. And today I'm going to present about what we can do and the connection between climate change from the angle of food. And before we jump in, so this is what I'm going to be talking about today: our Earth and our food, securing our planet for the next generation. But before we jump into that, I just want to share a little bit about who I am and my organization. So my organization is Jewish Vegan Life, and we were founded back in 2020. We actually launched months before COVID, and that was an interesting experience. Our organization went online for a while, and our events went all virtual, as did the rest of the world. But Jewish Vegan Life was basically founded to make the connection between Jewish values and a plant-based lifestyle. And we're a global nonprofit committed to catalyzing a global food revolution. Our mission is to inspire the Jewish people to connect the worlds of Jewish tradition and plant-based living. And our vision is a vegan world enriched by the synergy of plant-based living and Jewish wisdom. And the reason for this is, in Jewish heritage, culture, and our religion, there's a lot of plant-based and plant-supportive wisdom there already. And, if you look at from the very first chapter, Genesis 1:29, it kind of gives a directive of what we're supposed to eat and what we're meant to eat, and that was plants. Along the way, obviously, a lot has happened in the world, a lot has changed, but our mission is to connect those two in a synergy that can be used for a healthier, more environmentally friendly, and more compassionate world. And again, our mission is to, what we do through all of our programming, whether it's on the ground, whether it's virtual. We just had, for example, a vegan Seder on the ground in LA for the very first time. Previously, we used to be on the ground in Washington, D.C., basically celebrating all of the holidays from Passover to Hanukkah in a plant-based way. So connecting that, Judaism with veganism, Judaism with plant-based living, and kind of empowering and Jews everywhere to embrace this type of lifestyle and to live their best Jewish vegan life. So what we're going to talk about today, like I mentioned, is, of course, like I said, in Genesis, and there's also this lovely verse that says, the Lord took man and placed him in the garden to till it and tend it, to basically take care of it and be the steward of the earth. And what we're going to be talking about today is our earth and the food connection and what's really going on there. And I feel very much, and I've done this presentation a few times. Last year I presented at the 50th anniversary of Summerfest. And I think for me and for our organization, we feel that it's a piece that sort of is missing from the conversation a lot of the time. And, there's, you can sometimes hear a lot of things that you can do, such as reduce plastics in the ocean by not using straws. And, or, things that you can do to reduce your carbon footprint or reduce pollution in the air. And what we're going to take a look at today is the connection of what you can do with your plate to actually make the world a better place for the next generation. So 3 key questions that we're going to look at today is it too late for the earth? Can we still save our home? And does the power to shift course really lie on our plates? And that's where our organization, our focus is. And what would be the environmental impact of a shift to a plant-based food system? And those are the 3 things that we're going to be looking at today. Now, before we jump into the solution for that, let's look at the current state of what's going on. So the current environmental crisis and its impact on our planet. So let's start with the state of a couple of things going on. These are things that are widely known, nothing new here. Rising temperatures that are driving up natural disasters and economic, and disrupting economic systems. In the last 4 years have been the hottest on record, before the pre-industrial levels, of course. Climate disasters cost annually 520 billion and have pushed 26 million people into poverty each year. In less than a decade, there's damage that's going to be irreversible to our planet if we don't act now. And a lot of this information, by the way, is from either the World Health Organization, the UN. At the end of the presentation, you'll also see a couple of the sources for all of this information if anyone is interested. So as we see it, and what we're going to talk about today, we see one of the main culprits for all of this destruction and environmental damage and climate change and global warming as animal agriculture. And the way that we see this, I'm going to present to you, is it is without a doubt the biggest contributor. So there are many different contributors I'm sure you guys are hearing today, but we view this as the biggest contributor. And it's kind of a two-sided coin. It's the biggest contributor, but it's also the area that we have the biggest influence in, that we can perhaps it's the most in our hands to make a difference, if that makes sense. So for example, the toll on the environment from animal agriculture. Now, what does that mean? If we take a look, these are all the areas that maybe some of them you might have thought of, and maybe some of them you may not have thought of, that animal agriculture directly impacts the damage or degradation to the environment because of their existence. So we're gonna look into it, but it includes forests, soil, water, air. Of course, one of the most famous is global warming, but it also includes biodiversity, food shortages, food deserts, all of those things. So 9 areas. If you look only in the US for a moment, 41% of US land is used for livestock. And you can see a breakdown here, state by state, of what that looks like. That's a big chunk of land. And the US is a big country. And this is, nearing half of it being used for livestock production. So, this is primarily cows, but also, goats, sheep, also pigs is another pig farming is another very big one, probably second to cows, I think. Now, one of the big problems is deforestation and the use of that land for farming animals. So for example, 70 billion there are 70 billion farm animals in the world. 70 billion farm animals in the world. So if you put that in perspective, there's 8 billion people in the world, and there's 70 billion farm animals. Livestock and their feed actually cover close to half of the world's land surface. So that's, 1/3 of the world is deforested for livestock as a leading driver of that. Or if it's not livestock itself, it's livestock related. So it's like, clearing forests to grow grain or to grow soy, which actually then in return gets fed back to the livestock to then have the livestock produced, as you will, and sent abroad, mostly in the West, for food. So if we look again deeper at deforestation and land use, beef production is the primary catalyst behind global deforestation. So conservation of land for cattle grazing and feed production. So it's a combination of the two. It's not always for the cattle. It's sometimes for the feed that is then going to feed the cattle. Accounts for, like I said, 41% of deforestation. Forests are disappearing at 10 acres a minute. And I know some of these statistics sound really, really crazy, but at the end you can see sources, and you can also, I'm happy to, if anyone wants to contact me to dive deeper into all of this. But forests are dissipating at 10 acres a minute, with 16 million trees lost each day due to animal agriculture. For instance, for example, one of the biggest places where this is affecting the most is the lungs of the earth, and that is Brazil, which is home to 200 million heads of cattle. So if you've ever, heard people talking about amazing beef coming out of Brazil, this is what they're talking about. The Amazon is the largest beef exporter in the world, supplying 1/4 of the global market. And you say to yourself, why hasn't anyone stopped this? Well, they try. In Brazil, 346 activists have been killed in the last decade, either protesting, being arrested, or for things that are related to protesting but unintended. Maybe there was one time there was a stampede that happened while the police were trying to clear them out. Let's look at soil degradation. So deforestation for livestock and overgrazing contributes to 85% of soil erosion in the US. Soil is the largest land reserve resource of carbon, storing 4 times more carbon than all trees. I don't know if that was a fun fact that some of you may not have known. Pollution from excess manure reduces soil fertility and crop yields, in addition to the long-term effect of antibiotics. So a lot of the cattle, because it needs to be raised in such mass numbers, they don't go through their normal lifespan. So meaning, let's just say, for cattle, their normal lifespan till the time that they reach adulthood would be 10 years, let's say for cows. But they need, with the supply and demand, the beef needs to be raised within a year or 2 years. So there's a lot of antibiotics, there's a lot of drugs that are given to them to grow them quickly, and then antibiotics to counter some of the effects of those drugs. Let's look at water pollution. One of the leading causes of water pollution is animal agriculture. Why? Manure, fertilization, pesticides used in crop feed production contaminate rivers, oceans, lakes. Every minute, 7 million pounds of excrement that's produced by animals raised in the US goes into the water system somewhere throughout the US. This is actually really bad towards the Midwest area, but not only. 130 times more animal waste than human waste. So there's 130 times more animal waste happening than human waste. That's, I think, a staggering number. Again, water pollution, this contaminates drinking water with heavy metals and nitrates, leading to weakened bones, organ damage, cancer, birth defects. A lot of the developing world is actually being cleared out for the use of cattle, which is produced and then sent to the developed world, the Western world, for sale. So this affects a lot of the developing world, unfortunately, children, especially in the developing world. Each day, nearly 1,000 children die globally due to preventable water sanitation-related diseases. And again, while all of this sounds like this, I'm just going to go through it quickly. You'll see that the answer and the hope really, in terms of like what you have control over, what we as the human race has control over immediately, there really is a solution. Anyway, so water scarcity affects more than 40% of the global population and is projected to rise in the coming years. Again, there are dead zones, for instance, that is a result of this. What are dead zones? They're areas in the world's ocean ruined by excess nutrient pollution and animal agriculture. So some of this is dumped onto lakes, into rivers, but also into the oceans. And those areas, when it's, over time, become eroded because it's just an overload in the ocean isn't able to repair itself anymore. More than 500 dead zones exist worldwide. Exporting this industry, like I said previously, to some of the poorest countries in the world, exporting this waste. Water usage for farm animals. This is another thing. So not only are we looking on the side of pollution, but also water being deferred or diverted for animal agriculture use. So animal agriculture is responsible for more than half of water use in the US, with 20 to 33% globally. Humans drink 5.2 billion gallons a day, but cows alone, not the other livestock, cows alone drink 45 billion gallons. Producing a single beef burger takes 600 gallons of water, a full week of water use, basically, for humans. 1,000 gallons of water is needed to produce 1 gallon of milk. Here you can see, for instance, that milk in your coffee in the morning. We think about what the environmental impact is from you having your milk in your coffee in the morning. So here you can see that dairy milk outperforms, in a bad way, all of the other milks. As you can see here, we have rice milk, we have soy milk, we have oat milk, and finally we have almond milk. Almond milk does also use a lot of water, as you can see here, but still outperformed by dairy milk in terms of all of it, its emissions, the land use, and the water use. And then obviously we have air pollution. Livestock farming emits toxic ammonia into the air because of the manure, because of the waste, contributing to things like acid rain and respiratory problems in developing areas. There was actually a documentary, I think it came out about 2 years ago or something, where they showcased areas in Mississippi, for example, that the children were born with a lot of respiratory problems because of this pollution in the air directly related to manure and things like that. Because the farming was so, first of all, so big at that point, it had just taken over the town. And in that particular case, it was pig farming, but it's similar for all livestock. Like I said, this can cause lung cancers, cardiovascular disease as well from pollution in the air can be related. And there are close to 16,000 deaths annually directly related to livestock air pollution. Biodiversity loss. So biodiversity loss, like I said, is, again, the deforestation, global warming, poisoning of the waters. Up to 137 plant, animal, and insect species are now lost every day due to rainforest destruction. So basically, the rainforest supported, exotic types of plants, exotic types of animals, exotic types of insects, and the rainforest was their home. Once it gets cleared out to these levels, now we're also dealing with these insects, animals, plants going extinct because of that. So that's another downside to using the land in this way for animal agriculture. Almost half of the world's primate species are actually at risk because of this, including, as you can see, the Sumatran elephant, jaguars are among some of the animals critically endangered due to losing their habitats. Now let's get to food insecurity. So this is a big topic because starvation around the world should not be growing because we have definitely enough food is being produced to feed 8 billion people in the world. The problem happens when a lot of that grain that's being grown or food that's being grown is then diverted to animal agriculture instead of to the populations that need it the most. For example, more than 800 million undernourished people. There are more than 800 million undernourished people in the world. Now, not all of these undernourished people are directly related to food diversion for livestock. However, if this problem is already this bad, what we don't want to do is divert even more resources that are critically needed that could help solve this problem. 82% of starving children, live in countries where food is fed to the animals that are then exported to the West. So as you can see, there is a direct correlation between the food being fed to the animals to then the animals being exported to the West for food and children that are going without food in the developing world. In the US, livestock consumes 7 times more grain than human beings do. Again, a little bit more on food insecurities. 1.5 acres can produce 375 pounds of beef or 37 1,000 pounds of plant-based food. So if you see, pound for pound here, the numbers are staggering. Producing 1 kilo of animal protein requires 100 times more water than producing 1 kilo of grain protein. Some of those grain proteins would be like legumes, seeds, beans, quinoa, chickpeas, all of those types of things. While meat and dairy provide, now, again, we have to also look at the comparison here. How much of all of this investment into animal byproducts or animal products is then necessary in our diet? So we see here that while meat and dairy provide just 18% of calories and 37% of protein, it uses 83% of the farmland. So we're not even getting everything that we need in this model of a food system. So it's something that we should definitely address, because it's not even efficient for what we do need. A little bit more about food insecurities. The U.S. could feed an additional 390 million people if it converted to a plant-based food system. The world is already growing enough food to feed 10 billion people. So that means that theoretically, no child would have to go hungry if the world went plant-based, or at least more plant-based. Global farmland could be reduced. Global farmland use, could be reduced by more than 75% in areas equivalent to the U.S., China, EU, and Australia combined could still feed the world if we just converted 70% of what we're using for animals now to something that would be more plant-based. Let's talk about global warming, which is probably the most famous known effect of animal agriculture. I don't know if people connect the dots all the time that it is animal agriculture that's contributing to this, but global warming is sort of a environmental topic that I think people are most familiar with. So 51% of worldwide greenhouse gas emissions can be attributed to animal agriculture. Animal agriculture generates more global greenhouse emissions than the exhaust emissions from the world's cars, trucks, planes, and ships combined. So, carpooling, helpful. Obviously, people, that have the means to not use private jets and not fly a lot, helpful. But animal agriculture still trumps all of that. So reducing your carbon footprint starts really with reducing animal products on your plate. By 2050, greenhouse gases are projected to increase by 80%. This, everyone understands, is not good for our planet, is not good for the next generation, is not good for the future. Global warming, again, a few more statistics. Deforestation and soil degradation releases significant CO2s. Methane from livestock is a greenhouse gas 84 times more powerful than CO2s. And nitrate oxide, which is also an emission from animal agriculture, is 300 times more powerful than CO2s at trapping greenhouse gases. Now, all of that might sound daunting, but this is a wonderful verse from the Talmud that says, power is yours, ours, basically. It is up to us. So man was created alone. And the verse says, man was created alone to teach you that whoever kills one life kills the entire world, and whoever saves one life saves the entire world. So the power, there's a lot of talk about all kinds of solutions that you can do. I heard something recently about using less chemicals in the laundry, which is healthier, for my daughter and, for our home, but also helps to reduce our carbon footprint. And that's something that's, is within our hands. And this is something that's also very much within our hands. Basically, the choice is ours 3 times a day. And it's a choice that we can easily make to help contribute positively to change for the environment and for our planet. You have here even the UN urging people to eat less meat as a direct way to help minimize our carbon footprint. So now let's look at the impact of what being plant-based or vegan does for the environment. Now, this is a wide range, okay? It doesn't have to mean that you're 100% vegan, and it doesn't have to mean that you're 100% just only eating plants. But what it means is, let's just say you leave, animal products or byproducts off of your plate once a day, or once a week, twice a day, on Shabbat, or any of those things can also contribute. So it doesn't have to be, jumping all the way in. It doesn't have to mean giving up everything. It just has to mean, doing your part, whatever that is, to contribute to the change. And that could be, like we said before, changing the milk that you have in your coffee. It could be going plant-based on Shabbat or on holidays, things like that. So let's have a look. Every day, one vegan, but in this case, it is talking about like a fully vegan lifestyle, saves the life of one animal. Every day, one vegan saves the life of 1,100 gallons of water. Because, again, if the water is not being used to feed or grow feed for an animal, then because the demand isn't there for that animal, then you're directly contributing to not using as much water. Every day, someone on a plant-based lifestyle or vegan lifestyle saves 40 pounds of grain that now would be not used again for animal agriculture and raising a livestock for sale. Every day, someone eating this way or having this lifestyle saves 40 to 45 square feet of forest every day. So imagine what you can save in a year. Every day, someone on this lifestyle reduces the CO2s by 20 pounds. A plant-forward approach, like we mentioned before, could mean that the U.S. I think we already saw this slide. For some reason, it's having it a second time, but it could mean that the U.S. could feed an additional 300 million people if they converted to plant-based food systems. Now, there's some precedents for this happening. I don't know if you guys have heard of what's her name? I think it's Kelly, and she's called the Almond Farmer, but she used to be a major producer of beef, a beef farmer. And she converted all of her farms to almond production, and then later also to, I believe, soy production and a few other things. So and she's not the only one. There are other cases as well. Like it is a bit of a growing trend in the U.S. and outside of the U.S. to, farmers, we don't want them to lose their livelihood or go bankrupt or anything like that, but they just can convert whatever the profit is that they were, having before in animal agriculture, whether that's pigs or cows or what have you, into something plant-based. It doesn't have to be almonds, because as we saw before, almonds still uses quite a bit of water. It could be legumes like chickpeas, the bonzo beans, whatever you call it. It could be grains like quinoa, which are very easy to grow and have a lot of high protein content in them, and amino acids, which would replace the use of meat in your diet. The environmental benefits, if we move to a more plant-based diet that excludes animal products for the most part, would be greenhouse gases emissions going down by 49%. The land use going down for, like I said, raising cattle or raising feed for the cattle by 76%. Fresh water withdrawals would go down by 19%. And you can see here, the list goes on. I don't know how much time I have, so I'm going to move along. The impact again of veganism: lower greenhouse gases, reduce deforestation and habitat destruction, conservation of water, enhance soil and health biodiversity, and of course a healthy planet for our children. But obviously this wasn't the point of the talk, but this is also dietarily much more healthy for our children, for the future, addresses a lot of concerns that are rampant right now among young people that we did not see, 50 years ago, such as obesity and diabetes and things like that, which are a direct result of the standard American diet. What we would like to see in the future is a world where we make animal agriculture a thing of the past. And like I said, all of our efforts at Jewish Vegan Life is to show that you can live your normal, Jewish life. You can celebrate the holidays, and it's Pesach and Hanukkah, Rosh Hashanah, Tu B'Shvat, all of the holidays with all the fervor and passion that you had before, on a plant-based diet. And some of the segments that we have and that we cover at Jewish Vegan Life is we have a lot of rabbis and from all different denominations, from Orthodox, Conservative to Reform, that come and share with our audience, whether in person or virtually, share with our audience how exactly they can do that and the basis for that in our traditions, in our in Torah and all of that. For example, the rise of animal consumption came a lot later. A lot of the holidays, biblically, the celebration, animals were used more for ceremony and sacrifice, while as what was on the plate was still grains, legumes, fruit, vegetables, all of those things, and the animals were more used ceremonially. And along the way, that changed. But like I said, we believe in making that connection once again for the better of our health, our children, the future, the planet. If you'd like to learn more about our work, you can go to jewishveganlife.org and connect with us, write to us, and we'd be happy to connect with all of you who would be interested in hearing more or bringing one of our representatives to your town or hosting a vegan Jewish holiday in your synagogue. Any questions?
I support the idea of eating much less meat, and cutting down on animal agriculture. But 2 points. One is that not all land is suitable for human type plants. I mean, we don't eat grass. And that's probably one way why we then decided to eat some animals or drink milk from animals that can process grass. And my other question has to do with when we cut back, and please let's save what's left of the Amazon, other beings will be there and they will have their own needs for water. It's not totally obvious that we'll get the same amount of water back.
Okay, those are, first of all, great questions. And so I'll try to address them one at a time. So the first question, you were saying that not all land is suitable, and that's why we switched to animal agriculture at some point. So different things happened along the way. It depends how far back you want to go. So different things happened along the way to humanity. I'm just like, from a Jewish perspective, talking about this. So for example, after the flood with Noah, what you had was nothing, basically. The world, as the story goes, was depleted completely. And so that's one of the first places we see in the Torah where the meat is suggested as a concession. If you look before that, there isn't any mention of it being used as diet. It's mentioned of it being used as some sort of money or commodity, which it was traded, to buy things, to buy people, unfortunately, as a commodity. But it's not really used as a diet. It's not really used until the flood. And after the flood, you have a situation where there's not really anything else, and so this concession is given. But there are a lot of, I don't know if you know Rabbi Koch, for his first name. He wrote a lot about this and how it was never meant to be permanent. It was meant to be a concession until we were able to till the ground again and replenish things again. So now in modern times, to address your question, no, not all land is suitable for the growth of plants. However, like I said in the presentation, currently the land that either we are using to grow, grain or things that are edible to either both humans and livestock or to humans is already more than is the amount of people that need to be fed on the earth. So there's 8 billion people on the earth, not all of them are starving. And currently capacity is for 10 billion people. The issue I was talking about here is that not all of that capacity is being used for people. So even of the land that is usable, we're then taking what's grown on that land and giving it to animals to then sell the animals for consumption in the Western world. So the system in and of itself is a little bit backwards. There are a lot of people that do, grass-fed and free range and all of that. And that system is a little bit different. It doesn't use as much, it's not as daunting on the environment and not as daunting on the food system. However, the demand is so high that that isn't sustainable either. So what we're really targeting is to bring down the demand a little bit. And also, in the developing world, this isn't really a thing. Like it became in the Western world, like you go to celebrate, you eat a steak. You know what I mean? We're saying like you can celebrate even without eating a steak until we bring down those levels and make it more sustainable for the entire planet. And then your second question, I'm sorry, I'm blanking on the second question. The second question was?
Not totally a question, but if we let's restore, stop raising so many cows, I don't know about the chickens, but whatever, and goats, and let the land revert to whatever is useful, other animals will come in and they will still also be using water. And I know that it took more water to take care of cows than it does to take care of people. I mean, that's kind of
so you're right, we won't get all of the water back, but we would still improve because the animals and other habitats that are being destroyed now would then be restored, which is good for the habitats, good for the ecosystem, good for the environment. But even if we don't get all of the water back, and maybe it wasn't all of ours to use in the first place, so the earth belongs to us as well as to the animals, we would still improve our situation from the dire straits we're in today. So basically, if you look at it from a health perspective, from a compassion perspective, from an environmental perspective, there aren't really that many downsides to including more plants in your diet, which is kind of all we're saying. We're saying just like, include plants a few more times and leave animal products off a few more times.
No argument. Thank you.
Sure. Are there any other questions?
I think we're all set.
Okay, thank you all so much. And like I said, if you want to learn about our work, jewishveganlife.org. And have a good rest of your day and rest of the sessions that you're enjoying.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.